recording? That would be
Yeah,
good.
yeah, I'm recording.
I am too, but I always, worry about it. I'm just waiting for JS Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can just get him. I don't think he's accepted my request yet.
It's only 2 minutes to 12, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's probably not going to arrive until dead on 12. I presume.
Does he sleep late?
No, it's only, what is it? It's 7 hours difference, isn't it? So it's like, what time is it over there?
I don't know.
It's about 2 in the morning or something.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, I think
it's... No, hold on. What time is it? Where's he live? What state?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like, well, we've got like a choice, depending on which one it is. It's sort of like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or nearly 4, depending which state it is. Yeah, but it's about 7 or 8 hours difference between here and there.
Right, I think it's in the afternoon for them.
So it'll be maybe 1 or 12. I don't know where they are. I used to know, but I just forgot.
The reason why I didn't feel very well, I don't do wheat, but I decided to eat wheat. I feel sick. Ugh.
Ah. And you don't eat wheat, but you thought you'd try some before a show.
I thought it would be okay. I always think it will be okay. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I can't eat white bread anymore.
Can't you? What happens?
Get a high blood pressure.
Really?
Yeah, weird. I've eaten it for years now. I just can't eat it. I just get high blood pressure. Very strange.
It is strange. I have to say it's strange.
I think there's a lot of chemicals now in food that there shouldn't be. Seriously. To put it
I think it's that too. Yeah. Especially wheat. There's such a high demand for stuff,
Yeah,
I mean that they're cheating, aren't they? And
Well, I mean, wheat has always been a way of controlling the masses, hasn't it? I mean, the whole was it Salem witch trials was the wheat had they stored it in a way that it got a microbacteria on it, which is highly hallucinogenic. They knew what they were doing when they did it. And essentially, they fed it to the population, who started hallucinating and all that kind of thing. And that's where your witch trials came from. But essentially, it was very little to do with witchcraft and more to do with highly potent ergot, which grew on the what do you call it, the mold of the wheat.
Gosh, that's horrible.
Yeah, that's what they did. Yeah, and there was the same things in the Europe as well. Was it the Saint Vitus dance, where people couldn't stop dancing? Once again, they believe it was ergot and the way it was stored. Seriously. So it's kind of very strange, because obviously they've stored wheat for years. Why suddenly does it get infected with ergot? Unless somebody wanted it to be infected with ergot. Seriously, I think they presume that we're all stupid and we believe the bullshit.
Right.
Yeah, it's 2 minutes past 12. Strange one.
He's not here yet. Do you want to start without him?
Let me just send a quick message on Facebook. 1 second. Because it's sort of like a bit crap. 1 second, I'm just doing it now.
Okay.
You sent all the information, yeah?
Yeah, I was talking to his wife earlier, so. I was just reading about Bianchi. I just bought a book about his childhood, and his mother used to spank him every time he went to the toilet when he was young. Every time.
Why?
What?
Why? Does it say why?
Yeah, she thought he wasn't emptying enough and he was leaving a patch in his pants, and so she thought by spanking him it would get it all out.
Oh, right, that's always a good idea. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Obviously a biological major then. Yeah, it's like amazing, isn't it? Where you get these people from? I don't know what planet they're on, really. Seriously.
Oh, it's horrible. But then when his girlfriend, permanent girlfriend, got VD from someone, and I think the VD was like a trigger because it was around then that he started the Hillside Stranglings. But do you still think there's a gin involved, even though clearly all this mucking around with his penis by women
Yeah,
might?
sorry, I've just got a message from him. He says, "Are we supposed to be going on now?" And I've just said yes. So,
Do you think that's enough in its own, or would that encourage the gin, or what?
oh, I want to sort of like go into this in the show. Sort of like because we're going to be doing about depression, and we're also going to realistically, it's also how humans attract something. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because the two are inex. Yeah, oh, he's now speaking to me. 1 second.
Okay, I've got him. Okay.
Yeah, is that not good?
Will we be discussing the shaitan?
I'd imagine we'll be discussing many things. Okay, so
Well, I'll just try and bring him up. Hang on a sec. There he is. Okay.
hey, you got it. Oh, brilliant, excellent.
Oh, fuck.
Ah, maybe we'll have to edit this a little bit then.
That'll have to be you. I'm just rubbish. Hi, JS.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, thank you. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Christine Art Show. I've got you. I've got magician JS Garrett just joined us. I've got another magician, Brian Barrett. So I've got the two of you. Oh, and there's your lovely wife. Hello, Barbie. Beautiful.
Hey, how's it
Hi.
going? We're both here.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. So I wanted to talk about how magic can help people with depression tonight on tonight's show, you guys. Because you know a lot of people over here in the UK suffering from depression after the COVID, and you know it's probably the same in America. And I just wanted to, you know, talk about is there ways that magic can help that, and what can people do, and ways that you can help, etc., etc. um Go ahead, JS, you've got the
Okay.
floor.
Well, yeah, like you were saying, depression, is something most people struggle with, and I was no different. Whenever I got into actually practicing magic, I dealt with depression and anxiety most of my life, and that was one of the first things that I was alleviated of whenever I first made contact with an entity. So, there are several different spirits out there who, in their descriptions, according to others, specialize in mental health, emotional well-being, relieving things like anxiety and depression. There's one in particular called Lee Tana, which is a female entity. She's described as a demoness. And surprisingly, because most people think that demons are all sinister and dark and evil. This is one that's very compassionate. And you're supposed to call on her when you're in your darkest hours, essentially. to relieve you of those, symptoms of depression and anxiety, suicidal thoughts. And that's typically who I'll work with if I'm dealing with somebody who's suffering from those things. And we've had 100% success in that area, especially with that particular entity. And there's another one, an angel of deliverance named Ophal, who can restore someone to full spiritual and mental health. And we've had excellent success working with that entity as well. So it's a simple thing. It's just a matter of actually doing what you have to do in order to make contact with these entities, and they're very willing to help anyone and everyone who's willing to do that, from what I can tell.
Is that Ophiel, that angel of Ophiel?
Well, I pronounce it Ophal. It's Opfaal is how you spell the name.
All right.
And yeah, I find that if you pronounce their names incorrectly, it doesn't seem to bother them that much. They all go by different names in different cultures, and as long as you're pronouncing it somewhat correctly and using the correct sigil, the correct energetic signature, it's fairly easy to make contact with them.
And somebody was saying online that you've had contact with a jinn as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, so different cultures describe the same entities in different ways. Like for instance, if you're reading the Keys of Solomon, it describes Solomon as working with the 72 jinn, and one of the names of those jinn is Belial or Belial. Belial is described as a demonic king in a lot of different pantheons, and over here in this one they're calling him a jinn, which it's very obviously the same entity that they're talking about. So some opinions say that all spirits are jinn, and that very well might be the case, and some people think there's a distinct difference between demons, jinn, and angels, and that might be the case also. I'm not really sure, but yeah, there are several of the entities that we work with that are described as being jinn. So yeah.
Is Belial one of the jinn kings?
I guess that would depend on who you're asking. So I mean, yeah, he's considered to be a demonic king, a jinn king. Others know him as being an ancient god, and that seems to be the way that I lean towards in working with him. He seems very much like an ancient god who was demonized throughout history, because it's probably one of the most dangerous entities to the global power structure, and that he is the lawless one. He has no respect for the law. He has no respect for any type of oppression, and that's really his area, is to help liberate people from those things. So obviously, the powers that be don't want people making contact with an entity like that.
Yeah. What happens? Have you made contact with Belial?
Yes, ma'am. That was actually the very first spirit that I intentionally made contact with through evocation, and that's where everything changed for me. At that point, I was suffering from extreme anxiety and depression, like you were talking about earlier, and I actually underwent possession with this entity, like a full-on, what they call perfect possession. And that's really the first thing I noticed when I woke up the next day, is that I did not wake up in a state of anxiety or depression. Like I was actually excited to wake up that day and see what surprises the day brought. I felt better than I'd ever felt in my life during that time.
What happened? How did you go about it? Did you obtain his sigil, or did you use a book of any kind?
Okay, well, whenever I first did my first evocation with this entity, I had really no idea what I was doing. I'd never attempted to do anything like that before, so I did not use the traditional evocation techniques. I didn't even use the spirit sigil. I memorized an incantation that is spoken to initiate or reinforce spiritual pacts. And I memorized what is called Belial's song, or his chant, which is "It's Racha Belial." And I would speak that chant, and I would speak this incantation in conjunction with calling his name over and over again. And, it took me 3 days. I spoke this pretty much anytime I was awake for 3 days straight. And on the third day, I actually got an answer. So I didn't, like I said, I didn't do things correctly. I didn't perform a formal evocation. I was just persistent in calling the spirit forth. And I think it was my persistence that led him to finally answer me.
And what do you think gave you that hunger for that particular spirit?
Well, personally, I was in a legal situation at the time. Long story short, my wife and children and I, or my wife and my 3 kids, we got attacked by some meth heads at a private swimming pool in our neighborhood, and I had no choice but to utilize deadly force in order to put a stop to that attack and save my family. I didn't actually have to shoot anyone. I simply had to brandish a firearm and back these people off. Well, in the state that we live in, you don't have the right to defend yourself whatsoever. So when the police arrived, I was arrested and charged with 4 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And I fought those charges for 4 years. I lost everything. I lost my job. I lost my house. I lost my truck. I lost everything except for my wife and children. And, in that time of desperation, that's what led me to diving in headfirst into the one thing that I knew might have a chance at saving me, and that was black magic. So, I started researching different entities, and Belial was described as a spirit that could help somebody with legal issues. He is the lawless one, therefore he can help you in dealing with the law, essentially. And so, I figured that would be the best place for me to start. And it absolutely was. So that's when I began trying to make contact with this entity. And upon successfully making that contact, I was a free man 24 hours later. So, that was where it all started. And that's probably where it'll all end with me. This entity has never left me. It's been my guide throughout my path working as a magician, and has really forged me into the person I am today.
And does he come to you visually, or do you feel him? Do you see him?
Excuse me. Well, the very first night that he made contact with me, I actually did see a manifestation, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a manifestation of an entity like that. And I could also hear him speaking to me very plainly in my head. And so, yeah, I mean, it was like it totally ripped the wool off of my eyes, and made me realize just how real these creatures are, these beings, and how powerful they are. So when I'm working with him on a daily basis, I don't see him. If I need to commune with him, I can do that pretty easily. But it's kind of one of those things where they don't have to manifest in order to work with you. Whenever you contact them, it's kind of like making a phone call. Utilizing their sigil, speaking their name. It's one of those things where the first time that you make contact with a spirit is usually the most intense. That's where they come in, on the red carpet, and they're like, yeah, here I am, and here's a demonstration of my power. And so I really feel like it was necessary for him to manifest visually for me in that first contact, so that I could realize exactly what I was dealing with.
What did he look like?
Well, this actually, the manifestation, it appeared as a form of light. So I was actually staring at a street light, and there were trees in between me and the light. So it was kind of like a light in the bushes, I guess. And so whenever he arrived, that light expanded and started swirling. Not only did the light turn from like a regular light to pure gold light, but it got much bigger, and it took the form of a man's head wearing a crown. And then it transformed into multiple different animal shapes. And at that point, I started hearing him speak to me inside my head. And, I essentially, he said, "What would you have of me?" I said, "Well, I want these charges against me dropped. I don't want to go to trial. I don't want to spend any more money on a lawyer. I don't want to do another hearing, nothing. I want the felony charges dropped, period." He's like, "Okay, what else?" I'm like, okay, well, I want protection for me and my family so that this never happens again. He's like, okay, what else? Like, I still hadn't asked the one question that he was banking on me asking. And so I thought about it for a second, and I'm like, you know what? I want to become a black magician. I want to learn these dark arts from you directly. And he's like, very well, And then I simply followed his instructions from that point on, and that led to a full-on possession that same night. And then for 3 months straight, it was like I was in a boot camp with this entity. Like every single day he was running me through the ringer and downloading information and showing me how to use it. And it was like I absorbed 20 years of knowledge in a few months' time. So it was pretty amazing.
Oh, what kind of things did he tell you? What kind of magic did you learn?
Well, he taught me the correct way to do evocation. When I say the correct way for me to do it, the most effective. I'm sure it's different for other people. He explained to me how metaphysics worked. The mechanics behind ritual magic and the how and why that it works and the techniques that were the most potent. And with that knowledge, I'm now able to construct and create a ritual for just about anything that I want or need and get success with it. And he also expressed the importance of blood sacrifice. He explained that as blood is spiritual currency. And if you really want to amplify the power of any magical operation by incorporating that blood sacrifice, you're taking it to another level entirely. And that's probably why I get such good results in my work, is because I utilize that technique for just about everything.
So what blood do you use? Your own?
I use my own blood as well as the blood of roosters, and mainly roosters and quail. I raise quail and I raise chickens for food and eggs, as well as for sacrifices in my work. And so that's typically what I'll use. You could get into larger livestock, but that comes with its own share of problems. I mean, I do think that, if you were to sacrifice a bull, then it would be more powerful than sacrificing a rooster. But how feasible is it to sacrifice a bull on a regular basis? It's just not.
Hmm. I don't understand why blood is important to entities, because they're not in spirit. Sorry, they're not in the physical world, and blood is physical. I don't understand.
Well, blood is a power source. It's an energy source that these entities can feed off of and become stronger and more physical, more solid on this physical plane. You see, whenever we work with them, they exist on another plane, whether it's another planet or another dimension. They are interacting with us in spirit form. So it's kind of like whenever you evoke one of them and make contact, it's like they are astral projecting from wherever they exist physically to where you exist physically and interacting with you in spirit form. So whenever you spill blood as an offering to one of these entities, especially over hot coals, spilling blood into a fire, the fire transmutes that life force energy into a type of energy that spirit can fully absorb in spirit form, and then they carry it back to their physical form. And it's the exact same thing that I'm doing with the rite of deification for living people. The energy is first absorbed by their spirit and then transferred into their physical being. So that's how I understand it to work. And whenever you make a sacrifice, whenever you decapitate a rooster, at the point of death, that life force energy that's animating that rooster leaves its body, kind of like an explosion inside the ritual circle. All right. And so that huge explosion of life force energy, when it's done in a ritual setting, that is all absorbed by the spirit. So then you put the blood into the fire, and that is transmuted and absorbed by the spirit. Then you can place the body of the rooster into the fire, and that burning flesh and blood and organs is transmuted as well. So it is 100% fully absorbed. All of the energy and all of the power from that sacrifice, none of it is wasted. It's all fully absorbed by the entity. And then you are giving them a power source. You're giving them the energy and the power that they need in order to create the physical change in our reality. And it's also a form of payment in that it does make them stronger. So I personally think that's why most mainstream religions throughout history have been driven to commit mass murder in the names of their gods. And I think that's because every witch that was burned at the stake during the Inquisition was a sacrifice of burning flesh and blood to the Christian God. And that's probably why that religion dominates such a large portion of the world today.
Yeah, it does dominate, doesn't it? I was thinking too of serial killers. I was talking to Brian today about documentary I'm taking part in about the Hillside Strangler. Have you heard of the Hillside Strangler?
It seems like I have heard of that. I'm not familiar with the details of the case, though.
He, with his cousin in America, back in the 70s, he went out and he was strangling girls and he was he was torturing them as well. Beautiful women, always picked beautiful women, and he sort of laid them naked in the streets, and they were tortured and gassed and all sorts of stuff. And I always thought that there was entity involvement in that. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I would say most likely yes. What is it that drives people to commit crimes like that? The Son of Sam shooter. Didn't he say that I think that's the one. Didn't he say like the neighbor's dog told him who to kill or something? And then you have trickster gods throughout history that are notorious for appearing in the form of dogs and getting people to do things. So yeah, I do think that there's an entity involved with a lot of these horrific crimes and murders. Even like the whole Jim Jones thing. I really think that there was entities involved there too, and that was probably the goal from day one was mass murder, mass suicide. And so yeah, they're very, very likely feeding another worldly entity or force when they do this.
And do they always know, or do they sometimes not know?
I think it could go either way. I would think that on some level, most of these people know that they are serving another worldly force that is driving them to commit these crimes. I don't see how they could not realize what they're doing, at least on some level. Now, whether that's actually true in every person's case, or in some cases it's just mental illness and they think they're on a mission from God. Most of these psycho killers, they usually think that they are working for some type of higher power. So it makes total sense to me that there actually is a higher power behind it.
Yeah, and they never seem to fess up when they get to prison. They never seem to say, "Yeah, I was doing this for a higher force."
Yeah.
They normally clam up and they don't say anything.
Well, that's I imagine that would vary from individual to individual.
Yeah, it's interesting, but when you explain it to people, not many people believe in that kind of thing, or they don't believe in entities. So,
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, if you think about it, most people have a religion. They have a religious type of belief system, and if you talk to most people individually, just about everyone's had some type of paranormal experience that's at least made them consider the possibility that these things exist. But I think most people live in a state of denial, and probably most of the people sitting in church, don't realize just how real their religion is. I think a lot of times it's a social game, or they think that that's what they have to do to please their family members or to look like an upstanding member of society. But most of them don't take it much deeper than that, at least not past the point of praying whenever they need something. So I mean, everybody seems to believe in it to an extent, but I don't think that most people realize just how real it is until they dare to reach out and shake hands with one.
yeah, exactly. I mean, do you think the Vatican is? A lot of people think that the Vatican are, secretly sacrificing babies underneath underneath the Vatican in Rome. I mean, what do you think of that? Do you think they're out there doing that kind of thing to entities to get power?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably very true. You know, and in my opinion, the Vatican, the Catholic priesthood, is nothing more than a pedophile cult, and they're notorious for burning people alive and raping little boys. And so, yeah, it wouldn't be a far stretch at all to think that they were sacrificing children underneath the Vatican. I mean, that's just sounds pretty true to me.
Mm. And what entities would they be colluding with?
They're serving the same entities that they're glorifying, you know, and you know, a lot of the Catholic priesthood, you know, if you actually do real research and look outside of the mainstream take on things, a lot of Catholic priests were notorious for working with, summoning, and sacrificing to what they call demons. So yeah, I think that it's much more sinister and much darker than what we think. And I think that they've tricked the majority of the population into worshiping the real devil, you know, which would be the Christian God. Which let's face it, it's all about order, oppression, submission, pain, and suffering. So it's you know, ruling them out of fear. Anything that rules you out of fear is evil, in my opinion.
Or like Yahweh? I know Brian thinks that Yahweh is a storm god. Is that your opinion?
You know, I don't know. I won't disagree with Brian there because I don't know. But you know, he may very well be right. And you know, just because you know a group of people have formulated a cult around an entity that does evil things, it doesn't necessarily mean that the entity itself is evil. I think a lot of times these religions actually create egregores. They can actually create a thought form, and then by convincing people to worship it and sacrifice to it, give that thought form enough power to where it becomes a very real prevalent force on this plane.
Hmm. That's what Kurt, gosh, I can't remember his second name. He said that. Kurt, God, I can't remember that guy's second name, damn it. What's your opinion, Brian? You're quiet there.
Yeah, I could listen to JS all day long. Seriously, I often tune into beer and booze. Hi, Barbie. We've never actually met for real. I think we've texted once or twice. Yeah, so I can listen to JS all day. You know, you have to pull me out of this because I mean, there's very few occultists that I would sort of rate as highly as JS. We do work differently. JS is very much of the left-hand path. I'm more into the middle. I do go into both left and right-hand sides, but I tend to stay more in the middle. That doesn't mean to say that I'm a Christian by any stretch of the imagination. However, you know, going back to all what JS said, I think it's absolutely, you know, perfect. But the one thing that I found with dealing with depression is depression, in my opinion, it gets addictive. And no matter how you work with somebody, if they keep calling the entity back, it makes your job harder and harder and harder. I know where JS is coming from. He's got very, you know, he's got access to a lot of powerful spirits. He can bring them into their lives. He can make them better. However, there is always that thing where they pull the depression back. It's almost like an addiction, so to speak. So when I'm working with people on what I would call the depression level, I try and find out why they're depressed. That's the big one, you know, because like, is it physical? Is it chemical? Is it just a stage of life? And I try and get them to reach the higher levels of themselves, you know, before I go anywhere near a God or something like this, because I think it's really important that, you know, it's like fishing. If you don't put your bait in the right spot, you're not going to get the fish. And I think if the person is not mentally in the right spot, it makes the magician's job so much harder, because no matter how much you do for them, they keep going back to where they don't need to be. And, you know, it's like when you're working with alcoholics, same thing. You know, you try as hard as you like, they go back to alcoholism. You know, it can take 2 or 3 years to get somebody off alcoholism. You know, and I think that's one of the most real important things that I found working with people with depression is understanding why they're depressed and are they going to undo all your work? Sorry,
Yeah.
it's an awful thing to say, but it's absolutely, I found that to be absolutely true. I don't know what you found about that, Jace.
No, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think that people's depression, it can become a crutch for them, like something that they almost depend upon, especially when it comes in like the form of excuses. Once someone's diagnosed with something like that and their family and friends acknowledge it, then it becomes a great excuse for not actually doing things that they need to do. So, it's almost like, a type of hypochondria, and if you, like you were saying too, if you don't have the correct diagnosis for what is actually causing the problem, then that makes it very confusing on which area you need to attack or tackle or treat in order to fix the problem. So like you were saying, is it physical, is it chemical, is it all a mental disorder, or is there a spiritual affliction that's causing these things? So I mean, that's the first thing I do, is sit down and talk to people face to face and go through a list of like diagnostic questions, so that I can get a better idea for what the actual problem is. And if you can identify the real problem, the real source of what's causing the other afflictions, then you know where to start, and that makes your job much easier if you can figure that out. Now, if you're dealing with, let's say, mental illness, someone with extreme delusions, and they're always looking for something external to blame the problem on. I've had people come to me telling me that they've been, tormented by spirits, and that's causing all of these problems for them. And if they're not really being tormented by spirits, then it would do no good for me to do an exorcism for them, or to summon another spirit to get rid of these spirits, because they're not actually there. I need to be focused on the mental illness and not some imaginary affliction that they've concocted. So yeah, like you said, it's very important to figure out the root cause.
Yeah, I dealt with somebody recently who wanted his wife back. I've done this before, and it's something I must admit I don't like to do. I've done it for maybe about 3 or 4 people, which I genuinely believe they wanted their partner back, and I've done it for them. But the one thing that I've found is that it's a kind of addiction. They're not in love with the partner, they're in love with the image of the partner. And when you bring the partner back to them, it screws them up even more, because the partner's not there, if that makes any sense. And I totally agree with you. If you don't understand what they're addicted to or what they want, it's very, very difficult. And I always, I had a client the other day who was desperate to get his wife back, and I said, well, look, in the 3 years that you've wanted your wife back, has she ever knocked on your door? Just a simple question. Yeah, I said, I can get her to come back for you, but she will be a stranger. I said, what you're in love with doesn't exist. And eventually, I managed to talk him round, and he decided not to do it. Another woman wanted her husband back of 10 years, and I got the husband back for her. And she rang me about 3 months later, and she said, I couldn't stand it. He wasn't the same person, and I think that's also the problem with depression, that people, if you like, fall in love with ghosts, but they invent the ghosts. And I can quite see that when you say, oh yeah, I'm being attacked by spirits. Well, you've got the same thing. They've invented this perfect woman or perfect man. They meet them, and it falls absolutely short of their expectations. And yeah, I can see it, but I think that's the thing with desire. It's understanding, where you actually are on the board. Desire is healthy. Don't get me wrong. Desire is what makes our magic work. When I listen to you, JS, speak, the desire and the wanting to learn behind what you say is just so addictive. Yeah. But when it's the other way, it's completely destructive. You must have come across this kind of really twisted, dark desire when it's quite despairing. You must have come across it.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. on my website, I offer a love spell, and that's something that I've ran into quite a bit, is the scenarios you were just talking about there. People wanting their exes back, whether it's an ex-husband or an ex-wife or a girlfriend that they had 10 years ago that they've just never stopped obsessing over. And I really think that, there is a fine line between love and mental illness, like
we say this quite often, that love is a form of mental illness. You do things that you wouldn't rationally do. It's like a drug of choice. You do things you wouldn't rationally do. You say things you wouldn't usually say. You chase people you wouldn't usually chase. Like it's pretty crazy. And those are the situations that, definitely come to us for help.
Yeah, in those cases, it's important for me to sit down and really start peeling the layers off of, the person and get them to realize, exactly what their problem is. Just because you do a spell and make the ex come back, doesn't mean that they're going to live happily ever after. There was a reason why it didn't work out in the first place. And if you don't change those aspects within both of those people, then it's not going to work out the second go around either. And so when I say that my love spell is a genuine love spell. It's not a mind control spell. Okay, there's a big difference between mind controlling someone to be with you and actually manifesting a real loving relationship. And so, that's my goal. And quite often, they do get their partner back, but it's not an overnight thing. I will tell them, this spell is going to force you to change the things about you that caused it not to work out to begin with. And it also does the thing to the ex-partner. Now, they still have that element of choice and free will. I'm not forcing anybody to do anything. I'm influencing them and trying to, like I said, influence the change within both people to make them compatible for each other. Now, that's then it really depends on the people involved as to whether or not that will work out long term and be successful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
What does that entail, though? JS, what do you do for that? Do you call on an entity for that?
Yeah, we mainly work with Astarte for love magic, which Astarte is the goddess of love and the goddess of war. Love and war, they go hand in hand, and she's extremely powerful and we've had a great deal of success working with her. But she's also, another reason we work with her is because she's not going to, for example, she's not going to force a woman, back into an abusive relationship. She's not going to create something toxic. If she's going to help both people involved, it's going to be beneficial for both people. And she's really amazing about forcing the shadow work to take place within a person in order for them to be happy. So she's very fair, very loving, and she's also very ferocious too. Like, she does not tolerate abuse in any way. So I think she's ideal for working with love magic because she's an actual love goddess.
So what would you do? Set up a ritual and get pictures of the two people and petition her with a sigil, and you use blood magic for that? Or
Yes, absolutely. Yes to everything you just said. I'll lay out a ritual circle. I'll build a fire in the middle of that ritual space. I take photographs of both people involved. I write their names and birthdays on the back of their pictures. I utilize a sigil for the goddess of love. I start by evoking her and opening her sigil, and then I will make a petition on behalf of both people. And then I will sacrifice a rooster to the goddess in exchange for her help in this matter. And then I put both pictures of the picture of each person inside of her sigil. And then I add several implements, different herbs and implements that are used in love magic, along with like attraction, seduction, oils and powders, things like that. And I actually fold them up and bind them together inside the sigil. And then I put them inside of a mason jar, fill that up with honey, and then burn a candle on top of it. And I actually send that mason jar to the client along with instructions for a solo sex magic ritual that they can then perform on their own to not only fuel the power of the working by putting their own desire and sexual energy into what I've already done, but it also allows them to release their desire for the end outcome, which is a key thing in actually manifesting anything, is to push your desire into the working and then release that desire so that it can then manifest in the physical plane. And that's something that people have a really hard time doing with love magic, because they're usually in a place of desperation by the time they perform love magic. So everything really comes into play here, because people are so complicated when it comes to love. It just unlike anything else.
So their photographs will be in that jar, will it, as well?
Yes. And, unless somebody sends me hair, if I actually have, hair or fingernail clippings or even blood, then that would be, an ideal fetish link to actually put a piece of the person into the jar. But, pictures work just fine. It's an actual printout representation of you inside of this holographic simulation. So it's a photograph's all you really need.
And what's really amazing about having that fetish link is not only the jar is not only for the person that continue using it to push their intent into the working, because that intent and desire continues to bubble up within them. But you also then have full control over releasing that ritual. So if the person turns into being a stalker, or it's no longer your desire anymore to have this ritual come to fruition,
or if they come back and you realize, like Brian was saying, they're not the same person anymore, this isn't what I want.
All that they have to do is burn the jar contents into a fire, and it releases them from that ritual.
It gives them an off button for the spell.
Because love magic,
you can undo it.
Is there? It's full of honey, or a little bit, or literally full of honey?
No, it's literally full of honey. So I mean, if someone wanted to undo the spell, which I've had that happen before, client will contact me like, hey, I've decided I don't want to be with this person anymore, but I don't want to leave them under a love spell, because that would not be a very nice thing to do. In that case, all they have to do is pour the contents of the jar into a fire. Once the sigil containing the photographs and the implements has been incinerated, then the spell is no more. It's been lifted.
Well, I've got to show you something. Okay, guys. That is a Ukrainian love spell.
Very cool. What is that? What's it made out of?
It's just rope. But the thing is that they make it and there's no knots. All right. But the knots they use are very, very special. It's all bound and twined. Yeah. And this was made for me and my wife sort of like 7 years ago. And I mean, this is literally thousands and thousands of years old, this design. They but essentially it's obviously the red for the passion and the love, and going back to what you said about the blood and things like this. And I just thought you'd be really interested in it, because
that's pretty cool.
We developed our love ritual because we did it with each other. That was, we wanted to increase the love within our relationship, and that's how we figured out how to create. So it's really awesome that you did similar with your wife. I love it.
Yeah, we were really lucky, which was really, really cool. But I just thought I'd show it to you because it's sort of like Slavic witchcraft. It's like most witchcraft, okay? I mean, sort of like I give a lot of credence to you and JS because the bullshit is just not there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
when you get into sort of like Slavic witchcraft, you get more bullshit than anything else. So actually just find somebody who doesn't do it, and then you understand with these ancient rites, it's really quite enlightening, to put it bluntly. But it all goes back to what you and JS are saying about, I mean, realistically, if you don't have that passion, if you don't have that love, if you don't have that care, if you don't have that relationship with your God, forget it. Sorry, end of story. I mean, like I said, I wasn't joking when I said I could listen to JS all day. Often listen to Beer and Boobs all the time, sort of watch the podcasts, all that sort of stuff, sort of like, and I learn things. It's got to be good,
We try to have a lot of fun with that on Friday nights.
Yeah, that's our fun night. It's like it's our one night off. We kick back and have a few beers and interact with our audience. It's a small audience, but we have a lot of fun. And we've met a lot of amazing people through doing this publicly. Like
I can guarantee, if you're depressed, watch Beer and Boobs. You won't be by the end of it.
How can you be, right?
Yeah. So what? Just for the audience, quickly, what would the spell for depression be? Would it be something similar to that mason jar?
Well, I was actually going to say that we were developing and we were performing a ritual that looked very similar to the love spell for people to help with self-love. And through that, I created what I call slut water, which is Astarte's goddess elixir, which now that's been created in one of these ritual forms and put into an actual elixir in a small bottle. I don't think I have one right here, but it comes something like this that then people can activate and put onto themselves. I have them in little pendants now that people can program and wear. And slut water increases self-love, which then increases personal power, which increases confidence, which leads to sexual liberation, which really opens up the doorways for releasing any anxiety and depression. Because if you're sexually liberated, if you're personally empowered, if you're confident, how can you possibly be depressed? And this has literally changed hundreds of people's lives just in the last year. It's only been on the market for a year.
Yeah.
Including myself.
Yeah. Great, actually. Yeah, wow.
I'll actually get your address when we're off, Christine, and I'll send you some. I think anyone can benefit from it, man or woman. This is not, specific to any gender. I guess, what is it, 72 genders? All of them can use them or use it. My son is transgender, and I have him wearing it because I want him to instill confidence within himself. This isn't about being a slut.
About taking that word back.
Exactly.
Slut's used as a derogatory term mainly towards women in our society. When I hear the word slut, like if I'm hearing a bunch of asshole guys talking about a woman and they call her a slut, the first thing I picture in my mind is a beautiful, sexually confident, empowered woman. All right. So I don't think that should be a derogatory term any longer. And that's why Barbie calls it slut water. It's about taking that word back and taking away the derogatory notations behind it.
Agreed.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That really does. I'm excited about it, and I don't even know much about it, but it just sounds a great idea.
It really has. So many people have been liberated by it, just like I said, in the last year.
It has healing properties too, which is pretty interesting. That's something that we just kind of found out through experimentation. Barbie had some eczema on her elbow, and we tried all these different prescription creams and stuff like that, and nothing got rid of it. And she was complaining about it one night, and I'm like, why don't you put some slut water on it and see if it helps? It actually did. Like it completely disappeared in 3 days. So I don't even know how to explain that other than it has power.
It's stress related, the eczema or the psoriasis or whatever they want to name it whenever you go to the doctor, because they never know really what name to put on it. They just throw creams at it. But it is definitely stress related, which is a spiritual affliction. So it makes sense that something magical like this would help with that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also related to diet as well. Sort of like I've read a lot of theses where people will change their diet. Like, for example, they may go to somewhere exotic like India or something like this. They eat a lot more fruit and they get a lot more sun, and voila, it disappears. So maybe watch the diet as well, because something will trigger it and other things won't trigger it. But anyway, you've got rid of it. So
that's something that we've been working on too, is eating more healthy, And, we don't always stick to that, but for the most part.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures on YouTube, don't worry.
Yeah, cleanses every so often.
Sorry, Facebook.
It helps a lot.
We're coming up to the hour, guys, and it's the end of the show. And where can everybody reach everybody? Can everybody let everybody know, the listeners, about where to reach you guys?
For us, our website is www.jsgarrett.com, and our YouTube channel is JS Garrett on YouTube. And you should be able to contact us through our website there. So
yeah, we're also on Facebook. We have a business page, which is JS Garrett also. We figured it'd be better just to keep all the same.
Sorry, where can you buy your powders and stuff and all that kind of thing from?
JSGarrett.com.
Oh, on the website.
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay, brilliant. I've seen your YouTube, actually. It's really good. I've tuned in there a lot of times. And you interviewed Brian one time, didn't you? Yeah.
You interviewed Brian.
Yeah, we've done a couple of interviews together, actually.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, a couple. Yeah, which is good.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll do another one when the book's released. It should be released next month, by the way.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got a review for you for that book. I've been reading it since you sent it to me, and it's obvious that you've really done the legwork to obtain the knowledge. I think a lot of people, they just read other books and try to like repackage shit and regurgitate it. You've actually gone to these places physically. You've worked with these gin masters in person. You've had the experience to be writing a book for other people, as opposed to someone just hanging out in the basement reading other people's books and then regurgitating something. So I definitely recommend your book, and I can't wait for it to be released. We'll definitely do another interview for that.
Cool. That's really good. Yeah, it's like yourself. I mean, sort of, it doesn't come to you. You've got to dig. You've got to dig. Sorry, it doesn't come to you. When you dig, it comes to you. That's the aggravating part of it, but you've got to dig first, that's how it works, which is really cool.
So where can people buy it, Brian?
Well, at the moment I'm talking to 3 distributors, so as soon as I know, I will let it go. I'm just hearing what they're going to say, what they're doing, blah blah blah.
Are you going to self-publish it?
Well, that's what somebody else is suggesting. At the moment, I don't know really, but sort of, I'll leave it to the gods. They will know what to do, to put it bluntly. Sort of like, if in doubt, don't let the gods take over. I mean, it's sort of, we have these really amazing ideas, and the gods have even better ones. So it's just understanding that they're having, sometimes you've got to go with it, which is really cool. Oh, there is one thing I've never shown you, JS. But anyway, I just thought I'd finish the show on this. This will really freak you out, but I'll show you it next time we get interviewed. I have. Are you waiting?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You'll probably kill for this. I have an original Go-To Mendes bell.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely want to know more about that.
No, seriously. Yeah, seriously.
What's the Goat of Mendes bell?
It goes back to the Egyptian times. It goes back to the early worship of Set, and I actually have the bell. And I was given it because it was cursing the person who had it. Yeah, I must admit I've never rang it. All right, okay, I've never rang it.
That was my first question. Have you rang the bell?
There's only one person I know, or probably 2 people I know, who would probably dare ring it, and you're one of them. I mean, I've never rang it.
Bring it here, Brian. No.
It'd be like a red flag to a bull. Like, here, yes, don't ring the bell. I'm gonna do it. So.
Yeah. I know you're gonna do it. I mean, sort of like, I keep thinking, should I send it to you?
No.
Should I send it to you?
The answer is no.
The
You
answer
can
is
send it
no.
to Barbie, and I'll put it away for after the kids are fully grown.
Maybe we talk
Brian?
about it off
Can you
there.
hold it up?
We'll see.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Chris.
Can you hold it up? Could we see it?
Hold on. Do you want me to get it?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second.
He was teasing us with that.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in that. I'm really fascinated with Egyptology and the type of sorcery that the Egyptians actually performed. The story of Moses doing battle with the Pharaoh's sorcerers is one of the most fascinating stories I've ever read. And it's obvious that they knew a hell of a lot more than we do now.
Right.
What God do you think Moses was talking to?
Oh, that's hold on, let's show that.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
It's like hundreds and hundreds of years old. I have to be very gentle with it. It literally is.
That ring.
See. Look at that.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very tempted to send it to you, but like
it's probably priceless. Am I right?
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it's 100% haunted. Okay, there's no two ways around it. There's lots of energy around it. You can see it's incredibly old. Incredibly old. But that's an original goat of Mendes Bell.
That is beautiful.
Why is it called goat?
Because that's his form, or that's its form. I don't think you can call it he, she, but yeah, that's its form. And a witch friend gave it to me because she was in an auction, and they auctioned it. And she got it for something stupid, like maybe the equivalent of $15. Took it home and got nothing but trouble. She sent it to me. It likes being with me. We've had no trouble whatsoever. But the thing is realistically, I've never used it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think one day I'll send it to you, JS.
I won't object to that. She might object to that. Barbie might not like that, but how can I say no?
I'm down on that.
That's what it's all about. Is going. I'm an extremist, dude. Like you have to be an extremist sometimes to break new ground and discover new things. And I try not to come to things from a place of fear. I try to completely embrace fear and get it to work for me and not against me.
Well, I must admit, this scares the living daylights out of me. All right, okay.
That's beautiful.
So then it only excites him.
I mean, literally, it scares the living daylights out of me. I know what this bell has been used for, and I would imagine it's, at some stage in its life, it's been used for human sacrifice. There's no two ways around it.
What's the figure on the top? What's that figure? I mean, what is that on the top?
It's a goat's leg. It's a very, very old goat's leg. Look.
I see. How creepy is that?
I think it's beautiful. So you were asking, Christine, which God do I think Moses was working with when he did that? I think that Moses was probably working with multiple gods, and I think Moses was a black magician. I think he was a pagan sorcerer, and possibly the greatest of all time. Other theories, they think the extraterrestrials were helping him, that it was actually ETs that parted the Red Sea. I don't know. Maybe ETs were helping him, but I think Moses was probably one of the greatest sorcerers that ever lived.
May I add something to that? I mean, the original pictures and sculptures of Moses, he has horns. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, ironically, horns is the sign of Venus, which is very, very strange. Yeah. Because Venus is the first star. Yeah. And hence it was also called Lucifer as well. So essentially, Moses is definitely connected with, the morning star, the Venus star, the Lucifer. So, I mean, it's I don't think you're 1,000 miles away from the truth, to put it bluntly, Yeah.
That's it all fascinates me. And, I'd give anything to go back in time and actually witness these things. But all we can do is research through the convoluted history that's been left for us and try to piece together bits and pieces of the truth, because everything's been distorted.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I think the only thing that you have realistically is your spirit, and that tells you what is true. you get that gut feeling, you get that feeling of spirit, you know, I mean, sort of, I mean, yeah, it's like when you did the sigil of Shamaziah, you sent me a picture of it. It's on my wall. Just took it off my wall. There you go.
Yeah, the
Okay.
masterpiece. Thank you.
Yeah, and like literally, it's sort of. I mean, it's been on my wall for years, since you gave it to me. But like, you know, I mean, that works. You know, that works. 100%. There's no two ways around it. In fact, you know, like, and I know you received that in spirit. So, you know, end of story. You know, that tells you what is constant, what is the truth. You know.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
You know, seriously. You know. In fact, look, I'm being a bit creepy today because I'm Jew. I've even got it on my T-shirt. There you go.
That's awesome. That's
love
awesome.
it.
Oh yeah.
That is really creepy, I know. Sorry. But
No,
there you
no,
go.
not at all, man. I've got it tattooed on my chest, and several other people have reached out and like, hey, can I get it tattooed too? I'm like, absolutely. That's why we put it out there for people to use it. So no, I love seeing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I sent the unblocking sigil to Christine because she was having a hard time because you did that really excellent program with that other magician,
Yeah.
and I thought it's really cool, you know. And
Yeah,
once
that ritual actually worked for me very well, you know. So
Lots of people are getting success.
I'm getting great feedback from others that have done it too. That guy, he's definitely in contact with entities for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Shemaziah. I can't say his name.
I
Shemziah.
pronounce it Shemyaza,
Or
but
Shemyaza,
you know,
yeah.
it's not wrong to say it how Brian says it either. There's multiple spellings, multiple pronunciations of that name.
And who is he?
Shemyaza is how I pronounce it. And
Oh no, but is he a Jinn King?
No, he's one of the,
no, he's described as being a fallen angel in literature. The only place he's mentioned is the Book of Enoch. So and that was intentionally removed from the Bible so that we would not know anything about the Watchers. But Shemyaza was considered to be the leader of the Watcher angels or the Watcher beings. We're really talking about extraterrestrials that came here from outer space. And, you know, he taught men root work, magic, and sorcery. So who better to teach us about magic than the being known as Shemyaza, who that was what they were famous for.
Hmm. And what do you think of Iblis? Because I was talking to Brian about it this morning, and the Muslims, as you probably know, what was the story, Brian, about Iblis said to God, "Why did you create humans?" And
well, he wouldn't bow to the human,
yeah,
you know,
that's
simple
it.
as that. I mean, essentially, you know, he said, "I'm made of fire. I'm not going to bow." End of story, you know, and that was it, really. I mean, but it's not that simple because, according to the Quran, Iblis prepares the earth for the jinn, and in the last minute, God said, "Well, yeah, there's some humans as well, and by the way, they're your boss." And of course, he wasn't so happy about that, and hence he wouldn't bow to them. And you know, so I mean, is it rightful indignation? I don't know, but you know but that's more or less that's a very, very split story of how the Iblis came to be. And you know, essentially, he was robbed, in my opinion. You know, but
Yeah.
there you go.
Do you ever work with Iblis, JS?
Absolutely. If I'm working with jinn, then you know, spirits that I identify as jinn, and I'm intentionally working with them as jinn. Yeah, I absolutely work with Iblis in those ritual operations. For example, you know, Brian gave me the name and description of a particular jinn a while back to use for a very specific operation.
JS.
Yeah, I'm
No,
not.
I want to know that.
Yeah, I wasn't going to drop the.
She's going to ask questions.
Yeah, I'm not going to drop
answer.
the name of that entity or anything. But to give you an example for that operation, I began the operation by summoning Iblis and the Shaitan and Ifrit and offering them blood sacrifices in exchange for allowing me to work with this other particular jinn. And that operation is still underway, but seems to be going very well.
That was an amazing experience. As a sorcerer that loves to enjoy the experience while JS does the work, that was awesome. So thank you so much for that, Brian.
No problem. I mean, as long as, I mean, I only gave it to JS because essentially, he's got a very, very strong spirit, and he has family love. Yeah. When you're dealing with entities like that, you have to have love that is more than solid. Because the thing is it's nature. It will attack you.
Yeah.
That's its nature. And so, but now you've beaten it. It's good. It'll work for you well, to put it bluntly.
Awesome.
Okay. So is that it then, Christine?
Yeah, we'll wind up then. And thank you, JS and Barbie, for coming on. And thank you, Brian. And it's been great. I'm sure it'd be great if we can all do it again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed meeting Barbie. You were very quiet though, Barbie. You're a lot quieter than you. Maybe you needed a little bit more alcohol. I don't know.
I'm a drinker. I don't even think.
But no, it was nice of you to have us on, Christine. I appreciate it, and we've had a lot of fun. We're definitely happy to do it again in the future.
Oh, thank you. Excellent.
That's really
Brilliant.
cool.
Well, I'll let Brian sign us out with everybody, and you're recording, aren't you? Hopefully, Brian.
Yeah, I'm recording. So guys, namaste. Have a really good night. Okay.
You too, brother. Take care.
God bless. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for listening, listeners.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.